It started with rain. Not a storm, not a typhoon, not a named system, just rain. But in central Vietnam, this wasn't normal rain. It fell hard, then harder, then it simply didn't stop. Hour after hour, the clouds opened over the mountains, over the rivers, over the narrow coastal cities built between the sea and the steep highlands. By sunrise the next morning, that rain had turned into one of the most devastating flooding disasters Vietnam has seen in years. In the provinces of Quang Hoa, Dak Lak and Gia Lai, entire neighbourhoods vanished under brown, fast-moving water. Streets became rivers, houses turned into islands. More than 52,000 homes were submerged, power flickered out across multiple provinces, and the official death toll began climbing. First 16, then 29, then 41, confirmed dead, with 9 still missing. Every update brought worse news. Every hour revealed a deeper level of damage. Within 24 hours, rainfall totals reached levels meteorologists called historic. Dak Lak recorded over 300 millimetres. Gia Lai saw more than 220. But the real shock came from Quang Hoa, where one station logged more than 665 millimetres of rain in a single cycle. That's the kind of rainfall that doesn't just flood rivers, it reshapes landscapes. In the coastal city of Nha Trang, luxury hotels and beachfront restaurants stood half-drowned in waist-deep water. Cars floated like toys. Families climbed to rooftops holding flashlights and cell phones above their heads. One business owner said his restaurant filled so fast he barely had time to grab his children before water swallowed the entire ground floor. Up in the mountains, the danger came not from rising water, but from the earth itself. The soil was oversaturated, heavy, unstable, ready to move. Hillsides collapsed without warning, landslides tore through villages, snapped highways in half, and buried roads beneath tons of mud and rock. Before long, more than 30 major landslides had been reported, with others still forming in unstable terrain. This disaster didn't just strike with water, it struck with isolation. When roads disappear, help disappears with them. Many villages in Dak Lak and Gia Lai were cut off entirely. Communication towers failed. Power grids went dark. Emergency crews found themselves battling not just the flooding, but the landscape itself. Washed-out roads, broken bridges, collapsed embankments, and violent river currents cutting directly across the only accessible routes. Boats rushed through what used to be streets. Military units deployed rafts and armoured carriers. Helicopters circled above, searching for signs of movement on rooftops and in flooded rice fields. The rescue was constant, frantic, but the scale was overwhelming. Behind the scenes, FEMA-style emergency centres lit up with red alerts. Officials scrambled to assess damage that kept expanding by the hour. More than 13,000 hectares of farmland were wiped out. Coffee plantations, rice fields, perennial trees and aquaculture ponds all gone. Over 30,700 livestock and poultry were drowned or swept away. Entire harvests that took years to cultivate disappeared in a day. But the human toll hit hardest. 41 confirmed dead. Mothers swept away while evacuating. Elderly residents trapped when waters rose too quickly. Children caught in debris flows. 9 people still missing, including farmers, travellers and families who never made it out of their homes. For every victim, there's a story. A house built by hand, a life uprooted, a family left waiting. One father in Lam Dong held his son above his head as water surged through their home. A group of students in Dak Lak formed a chain to pull an elderly woman to safety. A 7-year-old girl in Dalat was dug out alive after a landslide buried part of her home. Survival stories surfaced. Small sparks in the middle of overwhelming darkness. Infrastructure buckled under the pressure. National Highways 1, 14 and 20 were partially shut down. Rail lines suspended, airports cancelled flights. The economy in these regions runs on agriculture, tourism and transport. The flood hit all 3 at once. Billions in damage and counting. Millions of people went without power at the height of the flooding. Some regained it within hours. Others waited days. For the most remote communities, the wait continues as crews struggle to reach downed lines and shattered poles. The weather worsened throughout the day. Afternoon thunderstorms returned, bringing more rain to already unstable terrain. Emergency sirens sounded in multiple provinces as local governments warned residents to stay alert. Rivers were still above danger levels, landslides still likely, and more rain was coming. Officials called it Phase 2 of the disaster, the silent phase where the floodwaters may recede but the ground stays unstable, ready to collapse at the slightest tremor. Experts warn that even moderate rain could trigger more landslides in the coming days. With so much water absorbed into the cliffs, the risk remains extremely high. Helicopters have been grounded multiple times due to low visibility. Rescue boats are battling rough currents created by drainage channels overflowing. This is the reality of climate pressure in Vietnam, a region caught between the sea and the mountains, where storms intensify faster, rainfall becomes more extreme, and the terrain responds violently. These floods weren't from a typhoon, they weren't from a tropical storm, they were from rainfall alone, and that fact alone is alarming. As emergency teams push deeper into isolated areas, drone footage shows the extent of the damage. Homes half buried in mud, villages that look like lakes, highways torn open like paper. For many families, everything they built is gone, their crops, their livestock, their tools, their memories. But as always with disasters in this part of the world, alongside loss comes resilience. Neighbours carried each other through waist-deep water. Volunteers cooked meals for evacuees in schools and community centres. Soldiers formed human chains to guide people to higher ground. Entire communities showed up because in a disaster like this, no one waits for help. They become the help. Tonight, central Vietnam stands between danger and recovery. Rivers are still high. The soil is still unstable. The missing are still unaccounted for. And the rain is forecasted to return. This disaster didn't just break records, but it broke routines, families, livelihoods. And in the coming days, the real test begins. Clearing mud from roadways, rebuilding bridges, restoring power, finding the missing, and preparing for whatever weather comes next. Because this wasn't a one-day flood, it was a system-breaking event. A reminder that the climate is shifting faster than infrastructure can keep up. And for the millions who live along Vietnam's central spine of mountains and coasts, the question isn't if this will happen again. It's when. If you want continued coverage on global disasters, live updates and breakdowns like this one, make sure to subscribe, stay safe, and stay informed.